And now let's go to the judicial penthouse of Stuart Address and see what's going on. Hello, Stuart.
Well, hello there, Greg. How are you today?
You're keeping our doctor's hours now.
Well, I'm doctor's hours. I arrive late. I will like to do what all lawyers like to do. I'm going to blame somebody else. It wasn't my fault. I plead not guilty.
You could be president.
That's right. A better one than this. Anyway, this is Stuart Address for Ask a Lawyer belatedly on September 18th, 2020. Let me explain what has happened here since we were trying something new this morning, and hopefully by next Friday we will get it down pat. I'm explaining it to those of you who are listening and to anybody who's on Facebook Live, if there's anybody out there, because I told them to go to Zoom. We were trying to do Zoom today instead of Facebook Live for those listening, so that those who used to listen or were listening on Facebook Live would be able to hear what Greg said in the studio and what all the callers were calling saying. Before, they could only hear me, and there was a lot of complaints. So we were going to try Zoom. We had a little technical difficulties this morning with that, and so hopefully that will be up and running next year. And let me say to you, Greg, L'Shana Tova.
Gesundheit.
God bless you. Anyway, that's Happy New Year in Hebrew.
Yes, sir. Happy New Year, sir.
Tonight starts Rosh Hashanah. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about that on the show which follows my show. And I will leave it to Rabbi to explain a little bit more. But we have a lot to do after the show ends. So let's get right to it. I got a very unsettling voicemail yesterday. And it is one that has prompted me to actually take some action and make an inquiry, because I don't really know the details, but I'm going to share it with you because many of you may either have students in the St. Lucie County School District or know of people who have students in the St. Lucie County School District. I got a voicemail yesterday afternoon from the St. Lucie County School District. They're standard voicemails, of this and that and here and there and up and down. This one I had to listen to twice. It said that for 11th grade students, and this would be for Lincoln Park Academy. I don't know if it's the same dates for everybody in the district, but this is about my school, my son's school, that next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they were doing the 11th grade standardized assessment exams. Well, okay. But then it went on to say for virtual students. And I expected them to explain how virtual students would take this exam. And they did so, but to my surprise, virtual students, at least at LPA, must show up at LPA on campus, entering through the gym on Saturday, October 3rd, 10th, and 17th to take their exams, in their 11th grade English exam. Now, that hit me like a meteorite. The anger started to rise, and I wrote an email. I wrote an email to the principal at LPA, and I copied in West Palm Beach, NBC, CBS, and ABC as a news tip. What has me so angry? Well, the whole reason behind people being able to elect virtual education right now is because presumably those parents who elect it for their children do not want their children on school campus. They are concerned about one thing or another, either about the student contracting coronavirus, or the student contracting a mild case and bringing it home to parents, grandparents, whomever else might be in the house. Myself personally, my son is in the My School virtual program because I was concerned about him. And frankly, at age 60 with some health issues, I just figure if I get it, I won't be long for this world. Now, to then hear a voicemail that says, even though my child is in virtual school, I must bring him to LPA on 3 consecutive Saturdays in October to participate. I don't care how far distance they do it. I don't know the details. And I have written asking for details, but indicating my serious reservations about sending my son to the LPA campus under any circumstances at the present point in time. So I don't know what is going to come of this. I do know that since the first Saturday is next Saturday, that by this time next Friday on Ask a Lawyer, I will have more information. But I would suggest that if you have students in the St. Lucie County School District, or if you know of people in your family or friends who have students in the St. Lucie County School District and who may not have received that voicemail yet, somebody had better start inquiring and asking questions, because those students who are in virtual school, at least if you're in 11th grade, are being told they must go to school on Saturdays in October to take their 11th grade English exam, the Florida Standardized Assessment. And to me, that defeats the entire purpose of having elected virtual school. And I'm worked up about it. And as a character I love from an old time movie said, he was in a newsroom, Greg, and he put his head out the window, and I think you probably know what I'm about to say, and he shouted, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore." Well, I am, and I'm finding out what the heck's going on, and I sure hope there's an option. Otherwise, I may be the one going to court.
See, I thought you were going to say he opened the window and he watched a turkey fall out of a helicopter.
Don't you remember that movie?
Oh, I sure do. I do remember that movie. You bet.
Okay, all right. It's an oldie but a goodie.
Network.
That's right. And what was it? Peter Finch? Do I have that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
That's his name. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's how we're starting the show today, folks. If it pertains to you or anybody that you care about, you may want to start asking questions. I don't know if everybody in the school district has to go next Saturday, or if it's just LPA and there are other dates for other schools. But obviously, virtual students are being required to go to a school at some point, in the 11th grade at least, to take their English Florida Standardized Assessment exam.
Do you think the testing companies mandate that?
No, from what I'm able to gather so far, that is a state requirement, and the state created a window of time where the testing may start and when it has to conclude by. And I think St. Lucie County picked these dates, and another school or another school district might pick other dates, as long as it's within the window established by the good old Florida Department of Education, who right now, again, as you know, is still being sued by the Florida Education Association regarding the reopening of brick and mortar schools. Now, doesn't this issue dovetail nicely with that? Maybe if there's anybody out there who knows any of these attorneys, maybe they're going to add that to the lawsuit, but you want to know something? That won't resolve it in time, because I checked the status of that lawsuit this morning. And you may recall from last week, I told you that the First District Court of Appeals reversed the trial judge's injunction and reversed his vacating the stay of the injunction that happened when the state appealed it. And so where does it stand even now, a week later? Nowhere. They're waiting for the state and the the Department of Education to respond to the complaint. The only thing that's happened is the First District Court of Appeals has set it on expedited status. What does that mean? I don't know, because nothing has happened on the docket for a week. Schools are in session everywhere in Florida. And so it looks like it may have been a good lawsuit, but there's not going to be an effective remedy, because any remedy is going to come too late. And so would probably happen with this issue as well. And that just, as they say, roast my coals. All righty then. Now, Greg, I'm going to ask you a question, because I don't remember whether I got to this or not last week. And hopefully you'll remember, so I don't dive into something I already did. Did I discuss a civil rights case that I'm considering taking right now that involved the police shooting in Port St. Lucie?
You touched on it and said you would talk about it this week.
Well, then let's follow through on my promise, because as we know, lawyers always keep their promises. But I was waiting for that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, you know, this lawyer tries to keep his promises.
You didn't even wish our governor a happy birthday.
Is it his birthday?
I think it was last week.
Well, may he celebrate locked in a room by himself with a mask.
Okay. Yeah.
Showing his true colors, and not the fact that he wants a position in what he hopes will be the next Trump administration.
Carol was reading me an article out of the New York Times this morning. I think it was University of Minnesota immunologist.
Yeah.
Who said that, we could have an instant shot, if you will.
An instant shot. That sounds like those magic beans that Jack bought.
Yeah, there you go. But it may turn into an annual.
Just like the flu.
Just like a flu shot. Yeah.
Well, you know, let's, I love deviating, and this is what happens in a courtroom too, folks. You start on one point, you end up on another one. We are rushing so fast towards a vaccine of some kind for COVID-19. And I think that's wonderful. And I agree with what Joe Biden said last night in his town hall drive-in, that if Dr. Fauci says it's okay, I will trust it and I'll go out and get it. If Trump says it's okay, I'm running as far away as I can, perhaps to Canada if they'll let me in. All right, so now we are working hard, obviously, on finding some kind of a vaccine. But, you know, there is no vaccine still for HIV/AIDS. There are therapeutics that are amazingly effective, but there is still no vaccine, and it's not for lack of trying, that's for sure. So the magic beans that is going to result in a vaccine in the next month for COVID-19 seems a little bit fantasy to me. Now, if we do get some initial vaccine, as even the scientists have said, and I'm talking Fauci, I'm talking Redfield, director of the CDC, it may initially be 40% effective, 50% effective. It may require a double shot, a couple months apart. They don't know how long it will last. Is this their fault? No. This is the natural progression of creating a vaccine.
And that doctor was saying that flu shots are only 50%.
Well, I think they're a little bit more, but what happens is the strain of the flu changes every year. And so they have to adapt the vaccine every year. And it's really effective to the prior strains. But if you get the new strain, the annual new strain, maybe it is only 50% effective, because they're always behind the curve. And you have to be behind the curve because there's no way you can know what's going to happen.
But what about the people who refuse to take vaccines?
Oh, that's a whole nother story, and I'm not going to go there right now.
Okay.
But going back to the COVID vaccine, if it turns out that it has to be an annual vaccine, like the flu, there's nothing horrible about that. That will become a normal part of most people's routine. I mean, I got to go out and get my flu shot. I got to go out and get my pneumonia shot, which I believe is every 5 years. You know, I'm at an age where I'm supposed to go out and get a shingles shot. These are things that you do to protect yourself. If what we have to do for COVID-19 is take an annual shot or a shot every 6 months to begin with, so be it. And will it ever be 100% effective? No. But will it get to a point where reasonably prudent people, that's a legal standard, reasonably prudent people can go out among their lives and engage in their lives without masks and eat in restaurants and drink at bars and go to movies and go to concerts? Yeah, I absolutely believe that it will get to a level of reliability where the average person will go out and live their life. Now, does that mean there may not be 20,000 people that die a year from COVID-19 in the year 2025, like the flu? No, it doesn't. Is that horrible? Yes, it is. But the reality is, every time I get in my car, I could have a car accident. Every time I cross a railroad crossing, I could get hit by a train. You evaluate levels of risk in your life, and we determine how much risk we're willing to take, how much is reasonable for us. And most people live their lives fairly well, realizing that there is risk in the very next step they take, as I found out a month ago when I fell. Okay, you don't know. But I'm not going to not walk because I might fall in my next step. So, I will trust the vaccine when the scientists say it is prudent to do so. And that doesn't mean I will necessarily completely change the way I approach life if at that point they're saying it's only 50% effective. I'm still, at that point at age and comorbidities where I'm going to be a lot more prudent than the average bear. Or elephant. But when it gets up to 70, 75, 80%, well, I'll probably be back in movie theaters munching on my popcorn, and there was a concert I was going to take my son to back in late June. He and I have never gone to a concert together. And you can well understand why a teenager would not want to go to a concert with dad. But we found a concert that for different reasons we both liked. And it was a comedian. And it's Gabriel Iglesias. Very, very funny. He's a very heavyset guy, not so heavyset as he used to be. And he's just hysterical. My son likes him for a certain level of the comedy that he tells. At my age, I hear the same stories that he tells, and I hear the innuendo, and I hear a completely different level of his comedy. But the fact is, my son and I both sat and watched one of his concerts on TV, and both of us were laughing hysterically. Now, it may have been for different reasons at different levels, but we were both enjoying the same comedian. And that was really a nice experience. So for Hanukkah last year, I got him tickets at the place in Weston, where the Panthers play, for a concert, and got great tickets, very expensive. And I figured this is going to be a wonderful experience for father and son. We're both going to enjoy to go to a concert. We're going to enjoy the same comedian. We may be laughing for different reasons, but we're laughing together, and that's a nice father-son bonding experience. Well, COVID-19 took that away. Concert was canceled, rescheduled for the same date in June in 2021. I hope we can go. I hope I feel it's safe enough to go by then. I'd love to take my kid to that concert. I don't know how many other concerts he might be willing to go to with me. Probably none. I mean, he's not going to go to Barry Manilow, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen. He's not going to go to any of those people.
I've never heard of any of those guys anyway.
So hopefully we'll be able to live our lives. Hopefully it's going to be soon. The vaccine will be what it is initially. It will get better and better and better. But it is still important, I think, for people to realize there are a lot of viruses out there that we still don't have a vaccine for. I mean, the most clear example is HIV. And that just shows how difficult it truly is. I mean, look, we have cured some forms of cancer. Some forms of cancer don't occur anymore, and some are very easily treatable. But look at all the cancers that have not been cured, or for which there are no really effective therapeutics. This is not easy business, and to say that the magic beans are just going to appear and the giant is not going to come down the beanstalk chasing after us is a fantasy. Okay, enough of my sermonizing.
Hey, remember, spring training schedule's already out. That's the first for the New York Mets, by the way.
Well, the Mets are a game and a half out of the second wild card spot.
What a game last night. 4 runs in the 9th inning.
That's right. Yeah. They say that second wild card spot is probably going to stay forever because, you know, where else can a 12th place team have an exciting game in September? So, you know, what can I tell you? All right. Let's talk about that civil rights case that is in my office right now. And let me tell you what in general terms, I can't give away too much. In general terms, what the issue is and what my problem is. A few years back, there was a shooting in St. Lucie County, won't say which agency, and 2 white officers. I guess everybody know where I'm going right now? Can y'all guess, given what's happened in the last 6 months in our country? 2 white officers shot and killed a black adult male under circumstances that are troubling to me. This individual had some emotional issues and had been treated for them. And one day he's upstairs in his house, he and his wife, a little bit, not too advanced in age, but a little bit advanced in age, reside in the house together. And he has this sense of wanting to get and implement and kill his wife. So what does he do? He calls 911. And he says, I've had some, mental issues, and I'm upstairs in my house, and I feel like grabbing X and, killing my wife. And the 911 operator, because I've listened to the tape, asks him, where is your wife? She's downstairs. Will you stay upstairs while I dispatch, help? Yes. And she talks to him a little bit, and then the line goes dead. So nobody really knows what's going on. Well, the police arrive. Now, they're going to say that they heard, help me, from outside. That is standard police code for a good reason to enter a house without a warrant or permission. Exigent circumstances is what it's called. They enter the house, and they say they see the husband standing next to the wife with an instrument which could cause very quick death. But they say the instrument's being held in a very threatening manner. And they say, drop whatever it is, drop whatever it is. Folks, it could only be one of a few things, really, okay? Drop it. He doesn't drop it. But he makes no additional move towards the wife. He's basically standing there mute. He's not moving. He's not saying anything. It's like he's in a glaze or a daze.
Could the officers have pulled the wife away?
No, they were about 10 to 12 feet away from both of them. And other than telling him, you know, drop what you have, at that point, assuming they had entered the house legally, at that point, they were acting prudently. You know, drop it, drop it, drop it. Now, the story then goes, one officer says that the gentleman took 2 or 3 steps towards the 2 officers. The other officer told the state attorney's office that he started to run at the officers from 10 to 12 feet away. So the 2 could not agree on whether he walked or ran. The wife, who was hysterical a half hour later, when a different officer took her across the street to a neighbor's house and took her statement, sometimes called an excited utterance. She has not had time yet to formulate a plan to lie about anything. She's hysterical. She's in shock. Her husband is dead. She says he didn't take a step toward the cops. He didn't run towards the cops. He stood right where he was, didn't move, didn't say anything. And that they just fired with him right next to her. So we have completely different stories. If her story is true, then it was a bad shooting and another black individual killed by white cops. I will tell you that one of the white cops was a rookie on the job for a month. All right, the other one was a training officer. If we believe the officer's stories, and he was making an approach from 10 to 12 feet away with a dangerous weapon, it's probably a good shoot. Why do I disbelieve the officers? Well, because they can't agree on exactly what happened. They also can't agree on how the husband was holding the implement of potential death to the wife. The wife also has a different version as to how that was occurring. And why it was occurring. There's an innocent explanation, which I just can't explain here right now. And I believe her because she gave her statement a half hour after the incident, hysterical. The officers gave their statements a week later at the state attorney's office while the state attorney was investigating whether criminal charges were appropriate. And so they obviously had a week to prepare. I've listened to these types of stories for 35 years, and I think I've gotten fairly good at hearing where statements that are given by police officers are largely true and where they've been rehearsed and planned and, you know, they're just cover. And I think that's it.
Wouldn't have internal affairs gotten involved before the state attorney?
This was a week later. This was quick.
Okay.
Okay. So I have my opinion. My opinion is this was another African-American shot down by white cops for no good reason. And we got to remember that this individual had called the cops on himself. And he had told them he had emotional issues and that he had been treated for them. And so one would hope that they were being dispatched to try to assist, not to exacerbate the problem. However, I will tell you all that one of my problems with the case is that that's not the law. The law is that the police do not take into consideration the mental health status of the subject. Otherwise, you're looking back 2020. And I think we have Sharon in Arizona with a call, because I see this little box on my computer, which I've never seen before. And so Greg is like shrugging his shoulders. He doesn't know. But Sharon, I have a funny feeling you're there.
I am.
Hello, how are you?
I am. I just got up.
Lashana Tova.
Lashana Tova.
How can I help you on this fine day.
Well, I was just trying to get on. It kept telling me that it wasn't supported and everything. So I've been trying for 5 minutes to get on. So I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Okay, so another thing we're learning about Zoom, that unless the host at WPSL controls this, people can just log in on talk. All right, so anyway, the police under Supreme Court cases do not need to take mental health status of the subject into account. I don't think that's a good idea, especially when they know it. But hey, that's the law, okay? The other thing is, the case law says that the courts will not engage in 20/20 hindsight as to what the police should have done. That's what makes criminal cases and civil cases against police officers so difficult. However, we are existing now in a time of our society when, in particular, the shooting of African American males by white police officers is at the forefront of everybody's thought process. We are at a time where there are almost daily protests, peaceful and otherwise, regarding this very topic, and white cops and black males in particular. We are at a point in time in our society where just last night I heard on CNN, matter of fact, it was a question that was asked to Joe Biden during the town hall by an African-American woman about, does he understand the conversation that they have to have with their sons that whites don't have to have? And this was a question that Anderson Cooper had sort of posed to Vice President Biden about white privilege, which we all know that President Trump, when Bob Woodward posed the issue, denied the existence of any such thing, or that he was a beneficiary of it. And Vice President Biden, in answering Anderson Cooper's question and this woman's question, acknowledged that yes, he understands the conversation, that generally white parents do not tell their white kids, even males, when they finally get their driver's license, look, if a cop pulls you over, put your hands on the wheel, do not reach for anything, do everything the cop says, do not deviate. It doesn't matter if it's unreasonable, obey, obey, obey. Now, do I believe that most white parents have some conversation with their kids? Yeah, I do. Do I plan on it? Sure, I do. But nowhere in the detail that I know that African American parents have to have that conversation. And Biden acknowledged the same. And, you know, the reality is, this is now something our society is discussing. Not just Black America, but more particularly white America. And perhaps change will occur because it's not just Black America discussing the issue, but it's white America marching side by side. And so to me, I am desperately looking for a way to say yes and take this case, even with the problems in proof. I have reached out to some colleagues of mine, and I'm getting some input from them. I want to find a way to say yes because, you know, I say that I practice discrimination law and civil rights. How could I say no to this case in this time of society? But, you know, I am a solo practitioner. I can only take so many contingency fee cases, and there's only so much risk tolerance financially that I can take. And this case will be very expensive, and this case will require 1 or 2 appeals to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals on issues of qualified immunity and the like. So it's going to be very, very expensive. And this is the difficulty of such a case. But I also know that if I don't say yes, I think this woman, this widow, is going to go without any chance at justice at all. And that really, truly troubles me.
Ladine is on the line for you, Stuart.
Hello.
Go ahead. You're on with Stuart Address.
Hi, how can I help you?
Hi. Yeah, so I'm listening to WPSL like I do all the time. And I do have a couple of things. You said that white parents don't have the conversation with their children.
Not the same conversation.
I'm sorry?
I said not the same conversation.
Yeah, I had the same exact conversation with my children. I have two sons, and I definitely had that same conversation with them, just as my parents had with me and my husband's parents had with him. So I don't know how everybody else raises their children. I know how I raise my children. So, and I know a lot of other people had that same conversation with their children. If the police say stop, you stop. You don't resist, and then, you take it from there.
Let me ask you a question.
I had that same conversation.
All right, let me ask you a question. Do you think that your children are at the same risk of an African-American male?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they are committed, now let me just rephrase myself. If they have committed some sort of crime or they are running from the police, then yeah.
No, let's assume they're in a car. Let's assume they're in a car and they're pulled over for potentially, I don't know, a taillight out. Do you think that the white teenage driver has the same risk or fear that the black teenage driver has?
I put the fear of God in my children when a police officer has pulled them over or when they've got into an accident or whatever. If they have the same fears as anybody else.
All right, well,
I live in a community where we have a very high population of black. I went to high school with half of my high school was that way. We all got along just fine. So, I mean,
I wouldn't dispute that at all.
Issues as far as that goes, but I have feeling that my children were the same exact way. Yes.
All right. Well, I thank you for your call. You're certainly entitled to your opinion. I truly believe that there is a little bit more concern of fear of the police, justifiably so, for black teenage males and for white teenage males. And for anybody, I mean, we saw George Floyd is not a teenager. I know that if I am pulled over by the police, okay, I'm going to do what this caller just said. I'm going to put my hands on top of the wheel, and I'm going to obey the police. And thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Anybody.
But I am not going to be afraid that I'm about to be shot. And I do believe that in our society, when an African American is pulled over by the police, whether it's for a taillight, going through a stop sign, a speeding ticket, whatever, that there is fear as that officer approaches. And given what has been going on almost every single week for the last 6 months, I think that fear is very justifiable. And it's why the Black Lives Matter movement has caught fire with white America, along with brown America and every other America, protesting and seeking change. And that doesn't mean I think we should defund the police or anything of the sort. It simply means that race is still an issue in our society, and hopefully it will continue to become less of an issue as the generations progress. I think it has, notwithstanding what's going on right now. But I do believe that, unfortunately, we have an occupant in the White House that has exacerbated race issues, and hopefully that is going to change. So that's a case that I am considering. And as always, we certainly, I can see we're getting near the end of the show. Then again, we started a few minutes late because of technical difficulties. Let me tell you about another case I had for a period of time until for various reasons I had to get out of it. Another shooting case, but not this has nothing to do with race. I ended up representing a supposed ATM robber. Now, this guy admittedly had a record as long as your wrist and your arm and maybe 10 arms after that. This was a career criminal, okay? So why am I representing him? Well, on July 4th, a few years back, he tried to rob an ATM at a bank in Jensen Beach. Wasn't very successful. It was early in the morning. Nobody was around. It was like the dawn hours of July 4th. And the police got a call, and one officer responded initially before the others. So one officer pulls up in his vehicle, and he sees that over there by the ATM machine is somebody with what looks like a fishing pole. And I won't get into the details of how he was going to rob an ATM with a fishing pole, but he calls out to him. And instead of stopping or doing what he should have done, he ran for his car. Okay. Now his car was about, I don't know, 20 feet away from him. So instead of listening to the officer, stop, hands in your head, or whatever he said, he ran for his car. Now, in running for his car, he certainly was not a danger to the officer. And in fact, the county sheriff's policies and procedures manual indicates that that type of a situation does not justify the use of potentially deadly force. Nor is the use of potentially deadly force justified in the event that somebody is fleeing from you, unless they are an imminent danger to the public. And as I say, it was pre-dawn hours on July 4th. There was really nobody around. So even if he had gotten to his car and he started to flee, he really wasn't a danger. They could have caught up to him very quickly. All right. But what happened is, as he was getting to his car, shots rang out. He's shot in the back. He's shot in the wrist. He's shot in the leg. And he still manages to get into his car. He closes the driver's door, turns on the car, is going to make his escape. The officer runs from his vehicle about 10 or 15 feet to the passenger side of the suspect's vehicle, which windows are tinted, and he fires 2 or 3 more shots through the passenger window, 1 or 2 of which again hit the suspect. That doesn't stop him. The vehicle starts to move. Now, when I say move, I mean move at like 2 miles an hour. What probably happened was the shots got him to take his foot off the brake, and the car started to roll. The officer runs in front of the vehicle and shoots through the windshield. Again, hitting the suspect.
Why didn't he taser him first?
Well, that's a really great question. It's one I had on my mind. And as he now has to get out of the way of this rolling vehicle, he does so, and the vehicle rolls and comes to rest about 20 feet away when it hits a tree at 2 miles an hour. So, of course, the officer, now other officers are getting on scene. And this officer runs over to the passenger side of the door, the driver's side of the door, and yells at him to get out. Well, he's really not in condition to get out at that point. So he's pulled out. And now he's on the ground, and other officers are now on scene. Trauma Hawk is called, helicopters lands, outside in the parking lot of the bank, takes him down to Jackson Memorial. He has, 6 or 7 bullets in him, including 2 in the back. Now, what about this factual scenario got me, at least initially, to take this case as a civil rights case against the officers? It was being shot in the back. I mean, first of all, there was no legitimate reason to fire at all. Not according to the use of force policies of the county sheriff. Not under these circumstances. Okay, I mean, this was a career criminal, but of, limited success. And he didn't brandish a gun or anything else. He brandished what looked to be a fishing pole. Oh, by the way, as he ran towards his car, he did throw that fishing pole towards the officer. I will admit that, okay? So now he's weaponless. That's when he's shot. To me, it was bad enough that he was shot at all under those circumstances. But to have been shot in the back, unarmed, I took the case as a civil rights case. Now, I will admit that there were a couple problems here. One was that my client was a pain in the royal posterior. And the second was he eventually died of his wounds. So I was no longer involved in the case. But I do hear the music, and I guess with that interesting little tidbit, we will sign off. I will say, have a good weekend, a good week, a safe one, please. And for those of you who are Jewish or who observe or have friends that are Jewish, Shana Tova, may you have a happy, a healthy, and a peaceful year. See you next Friday on Ask a Lawyer. Hopefully on Zoom a little bit better.
Happy New Year, my friend.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Ask a Lawyer right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WSTU, Stuart.